Hi again, everyone. It's been a while. I moved house. This room is exceedingly dark, so I have like multiple lamps pointed at my face right now, which is not great. Anyway, let's do this. So it's Halloween. Now, as someone who specialises in medieval Irish literature, Halloween is basically just like peak misinformation time. It's everywhere. Everyone wants to claim the ancient pagan Irish roots of Samhain, to burble on about the veil between the worlds is thin. Yeah. I'm gonna blame Yeats. I'm not actually sure if it's his fault, but when in doubt, blame Yeats, right? But I'm not gonna talk about that because if you get me started on the romanticists and stuff, we're gonna be here all night. Instead, I am going to tell you a story that does take place at Halloween, well, Samhain. Quite a few medieval Irish stories do, just not necessarily in the same way that people think of them as doing so, when they're talking about how mystical and ancient it all is. This story comes from Acallam na Senorach, or Agallú na Senorach, if you're from the north. My Irish is a increasingly Ulster-influenced hybrid mess at this point, so I guess I can't really say Agalov if I also say Talu. So Agallú it is. This is a story about Finn, not me. The other Finn, the one who is McCooler than I am. I don't think I've told any fíanna stories on this channel before, but there's a first time for everything. So this is the story of how Finn became the leader of the fíanna at the age of 10. Once upon a time, there was a guy named Aillén who was one of the Tuatha De Danann, the people of the Otherworld, and every year at Samhain, he would come down from the north to Tara, where the king was based, and he would play music so beautiful it would send everybody there to sleep, and then he would breathe fire and burn Tara to the ground. He did this for 23 years. Now, that's a long time. Like, I'm 23, and I feel like if someone came and magicked me to sleep with music and then burned my house down on the same day every year for 23 years, I would just start always wearing earplugs at Samhain, but it seems like they didn't think of that. They just suffered having their court burned down once a year for decades. Now what I love most about Aillén is that his music making doesn't make any sense. Like the first time it's mentioned he's playing a dulcimer, then he's singing, then there are pipes involved, and we're never told there are any other musicians present, and yet somehow he is doing all of these things. The implication seems to be that he is a walking one-man band who can play the pipes, sing, play dulcimer, and breathe fire at the same time, which frankly is a gig I would pay money to go to. So the king, who by the way is Con of the 100 Battles, and his people, they're not just like sitting around for 23 years doing nothing and occasionally getting burned down. There is other stuff going on. For example, there is a big battle is fought in which Cumhaill Mac Trenmore is killed. Now his wife at the time is pregnant with his son, who later goes on to become Finn McCool, or Finn McCool to the anglophones around us. And it's Finn that we need to be thinking about here, because while all of this is going on and, you know, they're burning Tara every year, he is growing up in the wild somewhere, and at this point he is 10 years old. So at 10 he decides he wants to have more from his life than running around in the wild, and he goes to the king's court at Tara and introduces himself to Con, and Con recognises that he is Cumhall's son and therefore probably someone the king should care about, and invites him to come and join the feast. Now they're all having a good time feasting and revelling as you do at Samhain, and then the king gets up and says, "Alright, I know we're all having a great time partying right now, but we know what's coming. It's fire, as usual, woohoo! Isn't it a pity there isn't one man of you who could defend Tara against this yearly menace? If I could find the man who would do that, I would give him whatever he wanted." Nobody moves. Nobody gets up. No matter how brave they think they are, they can't resist the magical music. It can send wounded soldiers and women in labour to sleep. That's how powerful it is. And they do not believe themselves able to stand up against it. And then Finn, who I will remind you is a 10-year-old boy, stands up and says, "If I do this, how do I know that you'll really give me what I want? The kings of all the provinces of Ireland will guarantee it," says Con. And they do. So Finn agrees that he will... Sorry, I'm spinning here. Finn agrees that he will defend Tara that night against the fire-breathing man from the Otherworld. Fíorcha, one of his father's former warriors, comes to him and says, "I can get you a weapon that will never miss. What will you give me if I do?" "What do you want?" says Finn. "I want a third of whatever your right hand gains, a third of your counsel, and a third of your plans." Finn agrees to this, and Fíorcha gives him some advice. "When you hear the Otherworld music playing, press the steel tip of this javelin against your forehead, and the poison in it will keep you from falling asleep." Because apparently nobody in medieval Ireland has heard of earplugs. Like seriously, they could have learned something from Odysseus. So that night Finn is circling Tara with the spear and a shield that Fíorcha gave him, when he begins to hear the beguiling music seeping through the air. He puts the point of the spear against his forehead, and the bite of it keeps him awake even as everyone around him is falling asleep. They're drifting off, defenceless against the fire that Aillén is breathing from his mouth, but Finn is awake. He sees the fire and he throws his purple cloak over it, and the cloak extinguishes the fire, slam-dunking it 26 handbreadths into the earth. No, I have no idea how that works on like a physical level, but that's what it says. And now when Aillén realised that his usual tactics weren't going to work, he went back towards the sheath of Finnachad where he lived, and Finn chased after him. As Aillén was going through the door into the sheath, that's a mound for those who aren't aware, Finn lobbed the magic spear that Fíanna had given him, and it goes straight through Aillén's heart. As advertised, this spear does not miss. So Aillén's mother, Tuathcha, was consort to the physician Avercha, and she took her son's body to him and begged him to try and save her son, but she was unable even to remove the spear from his body. Finn, meanwhile, enters the sheath and pulls the weapon out, then beheads Aillén and takes the head back with him to Tara. He mounts it on a stick and waits for the sun to rise, and for Cotton and all his people to get up. When they come down in the morning, they find Finn sitting there with his grisly trophy. "There you are," he says, "the head of the man who used to burn Tara. And just for good measure, I brought all of his musical instruments too." And genuinely, there are several of them, so one-man band. Now, they're not sure what they can give Finn in thanks for this brave deed, but eventually they decide that the best thing to do is to put him in command of the fíanna, a little band of warriors that the king kind of orders around periodically, and also they just do their own thing. Now, they've previously been led by Goll mac Morna, so the king turns to Goll and says, "You know, you've got two choices here. You can either leave Ireland or you can serve under Finn." And he says, "Well, that's an easy choice. I'll serve under Finn." And that is the story of how Finn killed the world's evilest one-man band, and in doing so took command of the fíanna, with whom he would be associated forever after. And he did all that in one Halloween. Here's hoping nobody tries to burn your house down tonight. Now, if you've enjoyed this story and want to support me in making videos or otherwise researching medieval Irish lit, please consider buying me a coffee. There's a link to my tip jar in the description. You may also want to check out my Twitter and Tumblr accounts because I'm literally always yelling about medieval Irish lit on there. That's pretty much all I do on the internet these days. So if you're into that, come follow me. And I will see you shortly for something else. Possibly Scéala Muchamuktatho, because I've been meaning to do that for a while. Have a good Samhain, and remember, on a somewhat unrelated note, if you are rescuing your lover from the Queen of the Fairies tonight, please take some spare clothes. It is cold outside, and when they get back from being transformed into animals, they will be naked, and they will very much want a coat. See you soon! Now, once upon a time, there was a guy called Aillén mac Midgna. Oh god. Once upon a time there was a guy named Aillén mac Midgna. No.